Welcome everybody online. This is a bit of a silent masterclass today, so the audio is not open, but as we normally run these sessions, the customer success team, as you can see up along the top there, with their cameras off, are actually in the background and can answer questions on the fly. If you have them, if we can't answer them in session today, we do take the notes in the background, so we'll be able to kind of come back to this and reach out to you if you're not anonymous in the chat bots. But without any more of that at the front end, welcome to our masterclass running today. How Safety Champion supports psychosocial safety management. I'd like to introduce you to Alicia Neville. She's one of our senior safety consultants here with our sister company Action OHS, and has a huge amount of understanding and experience in the psychosocial risk world. So Alicia will be running the first part of the session with you today, and then between us we're going to work through how Safety Champion supports that build out in workplaces. And just to introduce myself, if anybody doesn't know me on the line here, I'm Megan Taylor. I lead the customer success team here at Safety Champion. So I'll be doing the demo part of the front end of the system today. Again, any questions, please put them in the chat. The team are super efficient at replying, but we will come back to you if need be. There you go, Kat's just said hello. So let's get moving. Right, just to cover off what we're going to look at today, I just touched on Alicia's experience, but we are going to talk about what psychosocial health and safety is, run through a bit of a legislation update specific to Victoria, and I'll let Alicia take the notes on that one there, and then post that we're going to look at how the Safety Champion functionality can help you bring all of this risk profiling to work in an integrated manner in your businesses. So over to you, Alicia.
Thanks, Megan. So look, I just wanted to start off just by touching on some terminology, because despite psychosocial or psychological health and safety being incredibly important, the water's been muddied by some very complex terminology that's throwing everybody. So I thought I'd just start with this off the bat. So straight up, a psychosocial hazard is different from, your day-to-day sort of psychological sort of ill health that people might experience from a personal perspective. So when we're talking about psychosocial hazards or psychological health and safety, we're referring to factors that are work-related that cause stress or psychological harm. So very specific work factors. A lot of people sometimes use the word psychological safety in place of this. And I just wanted to sort of highlight, because when you're reading sort of guidance material and documents, it can be confusing, that psychological safety is very different. And I made this little, visual here that just shows that psychological safety, it's about being included, safe to learn, contribute, and be able to safely challenge things within your workplace and know that you're not going to sort of come up against issues doing that. And it's a component of what feeds down into psychological or psychosocial health and safety. Alongside that, I've kind of broken it up there into that you can have social workplace factors that can impact that psychological health and safety as well. So they're things like conflict, organizational justice, bullying and harassment, that sort of thing. And then there's also the concept of how work is organized. So do people have role clarity, the systems and processes within the business supporting them to be able to do their work. So I just want to touch on that briefly so that as I start rabbiting on, it's nice and clear what I'm talking about.
Thank you for that.
No problem. So I thought we'd go into some statistics now, if that's all right, Megan. So when you look at the stats that Safe Work Australia provide in their sort of annual review on sort of work cover claims, there's a lot of numbers that sit here. And so I'm going to touch on these briefly, but then I want to have a quick chat about the human factor as well. So the percentage of psychological compensation claims versus physical compensation claims is slowly creeping up. It's about 1 in 10 at the moment. But the biggest difference is, even though it's a much smaller number than physical claims, the amount of time lost is significantly longer. So in the last round of data, it was 37 weeks for psychological injuries versus 7.2 median for all other injuries. And the cost factor in terms of dollars is also significantly more. So as you can see there, it's about 65,400 for psychological injuries and just a bit over 14,000 for all other injuries. So when you look at these figures, it starts to become apparent that even though it's a smaller percentage, the impact is far greater. But then when you take away the numbers behind it, the human cost is huge as well. So if you have a staff member who's suffered from a psychological injury in the workplace and they've had to take time off, 37 weeks, that's like more than half the year. So you now have a person who is disconnected from the workplace. They're no longer able to sort of connect in. They don't know where things are at, because we all know that workplaces love to sort of, progress and move on. So now they've lost some of that day-to-day knowledge about where the changes have occurred, and it becomes really difficult for them to come back to work. When you have someone who then is having difficulty coming back to work, a lot of these claims, the count finishes because they actually decide to depart. So if people stuck around, you might find that those stats start getting longer. But I think a lot of people over time just decide it's too hard to come back after such a significant period of time off. When you have happy employees, you end up with better productivity and retention, because employees who aren't at their absolute max bandwidth for what they're able to cope with, they're inspired, they're innovative, they want to be there. So not only is good psychosocial risk management important for reducing these figures, but it's also important for just having happy, healthy, productive employees who are going to help your business go further as well. So we might move on to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm just going to really briefly chat about the legislation as well. So everyone who's from other states, I'm sorry. I'm well aware that Victoria has been a bit tardy with this. But Victoria finally have a legislation update. So the OH&S regulations are going to be made formally in October for psychological health requirements, and it's expected to take effect in the 1st of December. So I'm not going to read through all of the dot points, but what I really want to highlight that at the end of the day, it's going to be following a similar expectation to physical injuries. There's going to be a requirement for risk management. There's going to be a requirement for reporting serious events. And I've got some of them listed in the dot points there. But there's also going to be a requirement to consider a hierarchy of controls type approach to things. So the physical hierarchy of controls doesn't work perfectly for the psychological side of things, but there's a really clear note in the draft regulations that state that you need to make sure that you're basically aiming above admin and training controls. So when we compare this to physical injuries, it's the same thing. You don't rely on admin or PPE as your only safety control. You want to be aiming for higher level controls. So there's going to be a strong encouragement for people to be looking at managing things from, change of work or systems, that design of how things are done. So I just wanted to highlight that. If you are in Victoria, other states are further ahead, as I mentioned. So use their knowledge. There's some great guidance material from the different regulators in different states. Look it up. But Safe Work Australia also have a model code of practice for managing psychosocial hazards at work. So jump on in, have a look at those things, because it's wise to start your risk assessments now. Don't wait till December. Get onto it, because it will creep up faster than you realise.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So the next thing I just wanted to chat about was how important it is to take an integrated approach to these sorts of things. So a lot of people are reading through the guidance material on how to do psychological risk assessments, and they're like, oh gosh, we have to do all these extra things now. And I just want to highlight, it doesn't necessarily have to be extra things. So I made this little graphic here. Basically, so the international standard for safety management systems is ISO 45001. It has a sister standard, which is ISO 45003, and that is for the psychological safety management systems, basically. They're designed to work perfectly together. They have the exact same sort of sections in them. They're designing these purposely so that you will integrate them together. And so what I've done here, I've also thought about the Respect at Work bill. So that's the Anti-Discrimination and Human Rights legislation amendment that came in, I think it was or might have been 2023 now, but it's been around for a little bit, and a lot of businesses did a lot of work to make sure they were up to speed with the requirements under that legislation change. So in the middle there is the Respect at Work sort of framework that got put out when those changes were made. And it actually really aligns very nicely with ISO 45001 and ISO 45003. So what I wanted to encourage everybody to do when they're starting to think about if they need to put in new systems and processes is don't look at something completely new. Think about where the similarities are. All of them have leadership commitment and engagement involved. All of them require risk assessment to some point and consideration of knowledge and all of that. So think about these things as a holistic perspective and start trying to bring them all together so that it becomes a smooth process across your business.
Excellent tip there.
So I've just grabbed this next slide. So the middle image here is from Safe Work Australia. So they also talk about integrating the approach in terms of making sure that you're not just focusing on supporting people once they're already injured. It's about looking at the whole life cycle of a person and the different phases of mental health or psychological ill health that they might be in at any one given time, because it changes. You might be having a fantastic week where you feel fabulous, and maybe you really are interested in programs that are going to help you be even better at work and thrive and really, hit your straps. But then, it might be a few weeks later and significant pressures have made it difficult for you to be at your best. So it's good to have a really holistic approach to these things and make sure that you've considered that, all the different sort of periods of time that a person could be in terms of their psychological health. So when a lot of people do really great things around that support and recovery phase. You have things like, maybe professional psychological support available. Some people have on-site psychologists for team members. There's EAP providers. People do return to work quite well, in a lot of organizations these days as well, and are good at getting people, support with their own GPs, encouraging them down that pathway. I find that there's also often a lot of interesting and kind of fun programs that organizations run as well that are in that little bottom bracket of promoting general health and well-being. So, sometimes there's like fun, programs around physical movement and like different healthy eating programs. There might be different personal development tools that an organization offer, but the real key one that I think is sometimes overlooked is that preventing harm in the intervening early part. So this is where you need to have the early identification and management of risk. So once someone's injured, it's already happened, or once they're already declining, it's already happened. Or if they're doing really well, that's fantastic to keep encouraging that. But identifying risks early and taking a risk management approach will help, so that you don't end up in that supporting recovery phase. I also wanted to encourage people that promoting general health and well-being, if you get into the good space where your risk management is top notch, starting to look at things that really focus on the individual so that the individual person can really continue to build and thrive and grow and develop. You might start looking at things like strength-based work design. So looking at what that person can really contribute to the team and honing in on those things so that they can just, get excited and run with the things that they're passionate about and love. And that's kind of like an individual job crafting, allowing people sort of the flexibility to adjust their work in small ways that will improve things for them. Yeah, so next slide, please, Megan. So I've just put a little quote up here from Mary Ann Baton. She's been, unofficially titled the godmother of psychological health and safety. She's got this quote here that says, "A structured approach to psychological health and safety is essential. It's not just about compliance, it's about creating a workplace where employees feel valued and supported, which in turn drives productivity and engagement." And I really want you to think about that, because while it might seem overwhelming that there's all these new requirements on businesses to focus on psychological health and safety, really at the end of the day, some of your frustrations around staff turnover, lack of productivity, maybe struggling to come up with new business ideas and move forward with things, if you take a moment now to actually take that structured approach, it's probably going to help you get to where you want to be at the end.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, without further ado, I'd like to now basically go through some Q&A with Megan so that she can start going through how Safety Champion can help support you along your psychological health and safety journey to help create that structured, systematic approach so it doesn't become overwhelming and too much.
Yep, excellent. So Alicia's going to throw some questions at me, and I'm just going to step through the front end of the platform at the organisation level. So I'm not going to go down to workplace or worker level at this point today, but I will show you through how things look on the web at this point for probably who are mostly on the call. Sort of a quick look of the list before, org level users, so the power users. So throw your questions at me, Alicia, and I will step through how we do this, not only from, I think, the point that Alicia mentioned before, doing more in the hierarchy than admin and PPE. That's obviously going to be a cover point in here, but actually pulling it right up to that integrated approach, even to some of the fun stuff that people like to get involved in. So
look, everyone loves a little bit of fun stuff,
yeah,
but
why not?
I like a bit of fun stuff too. But
we'll get the hard and fast stuff done as well.
Yeah,
so
it's good to have the baseline underpinning stuff sorted. So,
excellent.
So the first thing I want to ask you, Megan, was businesses, as we said, Victoria legislation is coming, but a lot of other states in particular have had stuff come in place for a while now. So businesses might have a lot of policies and procedures regarding psychosocial risk already. How can Safety Champion help sort of organise these in a sensible way?
Yeah, so people have been with us for quite some time. You'll be familiar with the fact that we have a documents module, which does house any and all documents that you need the organisation to see. So in this space here, we've kind of set up we'd always be suggesting at this sort of level, like a policy document, procedure kind of driving the activity forward, that you're setting this at the organisation level of the company so that the custodians of the program have that complete control. So what that allows you to do, though, from this level is allocate said documents down to whatever workplace that you need to see that document. So if I'm to look here, we've had a policy added in here for anti-bullying harassment. We've also got one down here just around generic work health, safety and wellbeing policy. This one here, you can see, has been allocated to a workplace and has a review scheduled just by the colour coding there. So if when you see the yellow and the orange, the coding's telling you something there. If you see a little arrow here, you can then see which workplaces have been allocated to. Now, your workplaces won't be Melbourne, Chicago, and Sydney. They'll be whatever your structure is in your workplace. But if I was to then go from here and just morph down quickly to one of those workplaces, and I'm just going to go Melbourne because that's where I am today, not in my hometown of Adelaide. That policy is now there and available for anybody who is in the workplace level as a manager or a worker who is attached to that workplace to view, to download, whatever they need to do. So you can make your documentation really accessible to your people in a way that's easy for them to access and understand. So that's available to all customers. If you haven't got the documents module or any of these modules, in fact, that I'm going to step through today switched on, please feel free to reach out to the support team. We will help you with this. We are aware that sometimes people think, oh, we haven't got that at the moment. Keen to understand a little bit more. So the support function via question mark up here is available, or there's an email address being shared at the end. But just thought I'd drop that in there now.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay.
Is there, like, I know that we talked about how sort of that admin side of things isn't the most important, but if you have crafted a lovely new policy or procedure, is there any way of knowing that people have viewed it?
Yeah. So if you want to get yourself out of emails and chasing emails to see when people have actually responded to activity that you're asking them to do, probably from that compliance space here, we love the communications module, particularly in the customer success team, because it does give a huge lot of gravitas, I guess, to the business to be able to know what's going on with their documentation, anything, training, documents, has alerts. You need a quick flash out to people. You need that response rate to come back, and you need to know whether things are being looked at and viewed appropriately. This is the place to go. So we have, again, the work health, safety and wellbeing policy launch. It's kind of sitting here right now to be launched some point. Status, no one's completed anything at the moment, only my test yesterday. But if I'm to go to the template and I look at this one here, no, sorry, I just want to view it. I have set up all the people that I've linked to the HR records in the system to send this policy to. So it's just a dummy kind of view of this, but really, really quick and easy way to ask the questions that you want to ask your people around what they understand about a particular piece of work with respect to anything but talking psychosocial safety here. I've just put, I acknowledge and have reviewed the policy as a really blanket way to do this. You hit send, it then goes straight to the person's inbox. There is a date timestamp that comes through with that. So if you look at the one that I sent to myself yesterday, I can view where I'm up to with this. Sent it yesterday. I didn't do anything with it. Once that comes back and I've actually responded, the date stamp will come through and you'll be able to see in that person's actual record here and then linked back to their HR record in the HR module that they have viewed, understood, signed off on that document. It's a very powerful tool for executives. If you're chasing a particular workplace in terms of that compliance piece that you need sorted, you can see at a quick glance here that, where people are at on the status perspective. Sent, ready to send, responded. This will say once I've completed it. If you need to flash this out again, it's a quick resend to the people. You'll also be able to pull that information through down to that workplace and chase up the managers of that area if you need to make sure that they're running through with their responsibilities in making sure people get the content that they need.
Excellent, thank you. So let's move into sort of some of those conversations about more proactive approaches now then. So what's some of the proactive ways that Safety Champion can be used to support the business as well?
Yeah, so safety leadership walks probably could be viewed not just as a physical way of doing things, but also having those conversations around how people are feeling and like getting in front of some of those risks. So you could use the inspection module in this instance, and I just got a template in here that I'm going to show you. That super quickly. Is it down here? I'm just going to view the template. You could use this at a management level to drive that activity forward with your people. And it is a conversation, so it's not really based on is it compliant, is it compliant? I've used safe, unsafe at this point in here, but you could use this, the inspection, to just have those conversations and note down what it is that you're finding out with your people. And if there are actions to be taken, use the actions module to drive that activity forward, because it may not be you as the person or your executive who can actually impact that particular issue or the change that needs to come forward. So noting down proposed and agreed actions, but also using the action module to really push forward the proactive way in which you can start managing some of those risks in the business. And again,
that's good. I like that.
Yeah, and I mean the emails can go to whoever you need to say that things have been completed. They can see the activity straight away of what's going on. Frequencies can be set to whatever you want. I've made them monthly because I'd like to keep the executive accountable. But yeah, inspection module can be a really powerful tool on that proactive side of things, just to get out and about with people.
Yeah, and I think if you sort of combine it with some like fresh education for your leadership around, some of the things you want them to be looking for and like where there are safety risks, on site, and, to think about like what might be blockers to people having good, like, really positive safety behaviors. Like it's very rarely going to be an individual choice, and there might be layers of different stresses that are stopping them from being able to do things. So yeah, you can use these inspection modules, I guess, to gently nudge people in the right direction after they've done their training, so they don't forget.
That's it. And use the action module to kind of drive the activity forward.
Absolutely. So I was just wanting to also have a conversation about that real sort of rubber to the road bit of the risk assessment. So how can Safety Champion assist a business to sort of have oversight of their risk profile?
Yeah, okay. So we have a module called Corporate Risk. We've just someone's renamed it to risk in the back end here, so I didn't change it, so I'd stay with it. So the corporate risk module really you can view this as your, you could use this for your entire risk profile for the company. I wouldn't just be thinking about this in sense of safety. It could be anything, but from a psychological perspective, there are some subcategories that have been set in this particular module already. So you can use those as needed. It's just a matter of adding the risk up here. You can see there's a lot that's been added in here already that the team are kind of working through when they're showing the product or working through the workflow they need to. But if we just do a quick search, and I spell psychosocial
I misspell
correctly.
it constantly.
Far
It's
out.
fine.
You can see here, this is a great way to start looking at those broad, big risks that are impacting across the business, not just in those singular areas or the singular person, to really start looking at what you need to do. What are your current controls and what do you need to get in front of? Which is one that I created. Which one did I do yesterday? Doesn't matter, we'll go with this one. It was this one. So I just did one yesterday on bullying and harassment. Across the board, it's going to hit the entire business. So just looking at what are you currently doing? What are your future additional mitigation controls? And at this point in time here, you would be creating actions to make sure that these parts are reviewed in the timeframe you need them reviewed in with the people who need to be looking at them. So there's probably an action link to this here. I did that yesterday, made myself responsible. So I've given myself a month to do so because that's what the risk matrix told me. But essentially, this is again talking to that whole how the action module pulls everything together from a proactive perspective and really helps you keep track of where things are at. The action module can have dates moved out if need be. It can be adjusted. So there's no kind of restriction on timeframes with that. It's completely controlled by the org users, the org power users in the organisation. But really, the strong part is making sure you have an organisation list here. So this is kind of attached to the ABC warehousing to the company right now. This one here actually has a risk owner attached to it. Someone's been assigned. So you can really cut and dice this as you need to. It stays either at the organisation to manage, or you can start allocating and pushing these risks down to the workplace to use to be reviewing as well. So you've got that funnel kind of coming back up around what the reviews of the controls are.
No, that's good. And I think you touched on two really important things then, Megan. I think the first one is that you're keeping it in with like your organizational risks.
Yeah.
You're not
Don't
separating
separate
it out. Like
Integrated. Yes, this is
it's part of that overall risk profile. The other thing you touched on was that you can use it to sort of prompt people to review them and stuff like that. And that actually kind of brings me to my next point. You've partially answered it already, but feel free to elaborate. So how can Safety Champion be used to create that continuous improvement cycle? Because psychosocial risks are not a set and forget. It's things that change over time. So how can Safety Champion support that?
It's probably the corporate risk module as it is, but in terms of that, thinking about things and getting people engaged, and I'm going to use an example here, which is something that people will know quite well. Safety plan, which is what I, as a safety practitioner, think of as like an events calendar in a way, but again, not just you don't have to just use it for safety. It could be for anything that you need to be planning on a regular basis, and kind of can be compliance. It could be that fun stuff. But in this area here, I just kind of pulled together thinking about Are You OK Day and how that's kind of quite a big thing around the country, and just pulling together a safety plan to have a meeting with people to explain the concept of what it is. I've allocated it down to a few different workplaces here, so every workplace will be getting this and getting an instruction to do something with it. Viewing that actual document too, there's an attachment coaching people around how to have an Are You OK conversation. So safety plan is a very easy module. And a really good place to start if you haven't actually started your onboarding journey with us yet. It's a really good place to start, just to get your list of activities in one place and kind of ticking along whilst you start to build out other modules around it.
That's good. I always joke that I'm like a bit of a goldfish. I can't remember something 5 seconds after I've been told. So I guess, that kind of feels like a bit of a digital to-do list as well. Like it's a good way to keep track. So it's probably a good way to also be able to set yourself reminders of when you're due for your risk reviews.
Absolutely.
If you're building that at like an organizational level as well, you could potentially use it to just as a prompter in your safety plan as well. well that everyone's due to review their
At
risk
this point in
register for their
time. Yep.
area. Please
Yep.
don't forget that this includes the
Absolutely.
psychosocial risks as well.
Definitely.
Go
And
through
refer
them
back
for
to the
everybody.
risks that have been allocated. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Wonderful. So just say we have, had an unfortunate incident occur. Could you just talk us through how Safety Champion sort of supports the reporting of psychosocial incidents?
Yeah. Yep. So in the February release that came out, I think it was around the 26th of February from memory, we launched our confidential incidents feature. So I just want to step everyone through that. And again, if I'm talking to this today because I'm not going to the back end and you're looking around your own site and this isn't switched on for you because it is something you'll have to physically go into the system and configure, please come back to my team. We will help you get this done. But knowing that where the rest of the country was at and that Melbourne was following suit quite soon afterwards, there was definitely a need to have this in there. So we don't see this as an outside reporting function. It should all be integrated into your normal incident reporting processes. So stock standard, you're going to report an incident. I'm not going to run through the whole form right now, but if you were to go into the back of your system and create a custom field called confidential, you can start to pull through more questions around this. You also have the ability now to override, and I'm going to give an example here. If you have a worker who feels they're being bullied by their manager and they need to speak to someone over and above that manager because they're not comfortable to do this, we have the ability now to ask someone if they think it's a confidential incident. They can select confidential up here so you can see that straight away with all the other bits and pieces coming through. But if they hit confidential here, a list of what I would call confidential monitors are now available in the system. And again, this is the sticky point where people might need some help to get this managed because you have to go through individual profiles to do this. But this list here will pop up if you've configured it the way you need it to in-house, and tell the person who's reporting who is going to get view of that incident. It will essentially override the workplace workflow or the executive workflow, the org level, and go just to those people. This gives those people who in a previous life would be your safety practitioner or maybe your HR person, the ability to see that without anybody else in the business seeing it, and give them the chance to triage and figure out next steps. You can turn this back to a non-confidential incident once you've worked through the process of the investigation, at which point in time it will sit back in that workplace, but there would be internal processes and procedures in place before you get that far. I think the good thing about this too is you can start to build in subcategories. So if someone hits confidential, I just want to show you two different places here. You select confidential, steps you through all the normal stuff that you'll see in your incident reporting. Then it kind of asks you any more questions here. Was anyone physically or psychologically harmed? You hit yes. Is it related to yada yada? And you have drop downs, selection point here. So you can build it into the actual incident injury type itself, or you can create some custom fields, custom values in your report form. So you can start to kind of just pull that data through, start to get an idea, and get that, I guess, open communication with people coming through whilst you're reviewing the incident. So whatever you're selecting here, same process, sign off, submit, but remembering that it overrides the actual workflow of Safety Champion right now and only goes to those confidential monitors.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay.
When I've seen these done sort of practically within businesses as well, I have seen some options where if you think about which fields you're making mandatory and which fields you're not making mandatory, that can sometimes support people to report more. Some people are terrified that if they put something into the system on their computer that you'll still be able to follow through and figure out who did it. So you can always encourage people within your organization to, if they're too scared to put it in themselves, find a trusted person who can put it in on their behalf and remove some of the mandatory natures of different fields that, if you find that people are scared to report because they don't want to identify certain bits of information. So, all of those are good considerations. So thanks for showing those confidential reports. I think that's a really great step forward.
No problem.
So the last question I had for you, Megan, is just all of this is really good and well. You can have your risk assessments, you can know what your risks are, you can have all these lovely things in place, but how do safety champions support accountability? Because plans are only as good as the person who's accountable for them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as organisation users in the room, even workplace users, your dashboard, this that you're looking at right here, is the area that drives all the activity. So you will see what is coming through and what you, as the workplace manager or the org user, are responsible for. So the worker level is never going to see an active a dashboard like this. This area here will flag up to you when things are well and truly have time to be reviewed. These you're coming up within 2 weeks. So the orange, green due today, and then red's overdue. So at the org level, you have complete view of what all your workplaces are doing. So if you did have a particular workplace that you felt was falling behind in this space, you can go in with those proactive conversations and try to understand the why, as opposed to going in with the why aren't you. And again, from this area here, you can just morph down. You have the access to do that. Workplaces will only have access to the workplace that they have been allocated to in the back end. So nobody's ever going to see anybody else's stuff unless you've given them the ability to do so. But again, this is the area that drives the activity and helps people to kind of to keep things on track. And I guess if things do go off track, it allows them the space to escalate back up to somebody who can probably help them to get it moving. So yeah. Dashboards, super important part of the process.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I think you said something that really stuck with me just then, that it's about finding out the why,
the why,
rather than the why not.
Yeah.
Because if you have a manager who's in charge of a certain area of your business and they are falling behind in some of their sort of requirements, maybe there's something that's causing a significant amount of stress for them that you need to delve into further, and maybe they need some extra support, education, training in different bits and pieces as well. So,
definitely. And I haven't pointed things out in here today, but this is the whole integration part, and not separating the psychosocial stuff away from your standard safety management. It's all going to sit in one area. It's just how you categorize things in house that really helps it stand out for you. I think one thing I didn't touch on was just quickly showing the notice board. So the notice board module, I explain this as, imagine it as your physical notice board in a kitchen somewhere, in a workplace. So you can grab a whole lot of information around psychosocial, psychological risk, that type of thing. It's called mental health in here as it was being built out. But if you need to drop in your EAP contact points, you want to drop in some YouTube videos, just giving some people some training resources, flyers, anything like that, you can think of this notice board as a direct replication of what you would put up on that hard copy notice board. Oops. So here's just some things here that we've kind of added in that space there, just to show you how they look. So we have PDFs, we have flyers, we have videos, but you also have the ability to build out forms in this area. So if you want to get a health check on how people are feeling, you could use this, the form builder in the notice board area here. And again, if this is something you haven't investigated before, you'd like some more information on, probably is a good time to just lean into my team a little bit. We'll be able to step you through how to build this out. So just kind of steps through ratings and the like. I won't go too much into those, but you can also build out contact lists. So if you wanted to drop in who are your people in your HR team that the business classifies as a safe place, who are your first aiders, you can have them all here. People have the ability to be able to view them as they need them, as opposed to going to a board and skimming down and trying to figure out who's who in the zoo. So that module, just good for anything really. You don't limit it to safety. You could have a whole lot of information in here for the business if you need your people to know about it. And again, if the information's been dropped down to the workplace level, your workers are going to see it unless you switch it off at the permissions level. So have a think about that as you're working through this as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Megan. I think that's really good. You can't always have a notice board for your operational employees who are out and about everywhere. So a digital one's always helpful.
That's right. Exactly.
Excellent. So that's all the questions I have for you today.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's okay. Thank you. I just wanted to drop this slide here, just from one of our excellent brains in the business who took some other slides and kind of made these work for him visually. So just the sort of areas that we touched on today that do support supporting psychosocial health in the business, just for a bit of a reflection point there. We covered all those off, bar HR, didn't go too far into that, but that really is just the driving area of the functionality of the system. I guess in closeout, we just wanted to drop up here the expert support we do have in-house. I've mentioned my team a couple of times. The support function is available to people, support@safetychampion.com.au, or by using the question mark in your toolbar, which will take you straight through to the support desk. But we do also have training packages available if people would like to lean into those. We are available to support that. And equally, Alicia, with her expertise on her side, has a stack going on with Action. I'll let her talk to the services and the functions available there.
So look, obviously, we're a team of consultants. So I always joke that like when you come and do some work with us, you don't get one brain, you get like about 10. There are a few of us who have done a fair bit of work in the psychosocial risk management space, but we obviously also support physical risks as well. So, feel free to reach out. We do all of our sort of proposals are based around very specific needs of the client and build it out for you. So if you need some support in this space, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. And then we can also help you get it all linked in with Safety Champion so that your integration is always running perfectly. So thank you for that. Just quickly dropping up those how to contact us points there. But we will have this presentation wrapped up in a webinar shared in our resource centre. There will probably be a marketing EDM that comes through with the wonderful Caitlin. But I've seen my team's been on there today taking some questions, so we'll go back and look at those. But thank you for that. Keep an eye on our training calendar. There will be more coming out the second half of the year as well, but there's a couple more sessions running in the next few months as well. So we look forward to seeing you then.